We're going to do our best to be as safe as possible.
We're really trying to focus on the kids and how do we build them back up.
To me, the number one thing that we do is continue the culture.
I absolutely want to thank each of you for being here. If you could, just talk a couple minutes about what things are like in your neck of the woods.
Florida is obviously a very diverse state. The southern part of the state is very much still shut down. Jacksonville, which is close to where I live, is one of the biggest areas for current active COVID cases, and you barely know it. All of the schools in our state have decided to start a couple weeks later. We were supposed to start Monday, but we're going to start on the 31st. They had a choice to start back at brick and mortar or to do distance learning. About 20% of the school and about 15% of my program chose that. And a few kids ultimately decided to do homeschool or virtual school. So I did lose 2 kids out of the group.
Our kids have been given the option of going fully virtual or in person, or they can go virtual, but they can do in-person electives. The kids started being able to choose July 27th, and they will be allowed to choose what they want to do all the way until the first day of school. So we really will have no idea who's going to be there until they walk in on the first day. And then they have to choose that for 9 weeks at a time. So after 9 weeks, if they go virtual and everything's going better, they can come back or they can continue going. Now, the kicker in that is the platform we're using for the virtual learning, there is no band. So if the kids go out of band or choose that fully virtual for 9 weeks, they will, when they come back in 9 weeks, they're not in band, because then it starts to mess up with their credits because they're going to have been put in another class. So they're out of band until at least Christmas.
I don't know how I feel about what I just heard from Jason and Jason, or both Jasons. I mean, you guys are going back to school. We are not allowed. My district back in March was not prepared for any kind of virtual anything. And we were told that we were to not give instruction to those students. We're starting this week to have trainings. Next week, we've got official teacher work days coming back, and then we start August 17th. The governor has said he's created a county list. If you have a certain number of positive cases, you're on the list. And if you're on the list, you don't go back to school. Well, that's 90% of the state. 90% of everybody is doing virtual. You have to be off the list for 3 days, and then you can go to some sort of hybrid or back in person kind of thing.
Our district, as of today, is going to bring back half the kids on Mondays and Thursdays. The other half will come on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then Wednesday, everybody will be virtual. So I'll only see my kids twice a week in person. I can have a video camera so they can watch me while I teach, or I can give them separate projects to do. Honestly, one of the things that I've been doing is including my students in a lot of those decisions. We've spent all summer in meetings with my leadership team. I'm trying to bring some more minds into it, and I'm trying to bring the kids into it so that they feel like they have ownership.
As you know, we were a hot spot really early. In March, Michigan was, and our governor released eventually 6 stages for phased return, opening businesses, et cetera, et cetera. We've been in phase 4 for about a month. In my home district, we're a small bedroom community to the University of Michigan, so I'm about 10 miles away from Ann Arbor. We are starting 100% remotely, and we're supposed to start on September 8th. So we're starting 100% remotely. If cases continue to decline for 2 weeks, we'll start phased return. We begin with a 25% capacity. The way it's happening right now, I don't see us being normal. I don't see us at 100% capacity here until December or January.
Now, my problems are different than your problems, being in a college situation versus the high school situation. We are a smaller university. The social distance, the masks, all that is going to be required. We are starting face to face, and we'll be 6 feet apart, and it'll be hard to hear, but they'll actually get to be in the same room.
We purchased a medical grade HEPA filter, 2 of them, to help kind of circulate the air better. And we have not started any band camp stuff. I don't do that until the first weekend of school. I've altered the rehearsal schedule so there's not night rehearsals. We're going to do our best to be as safe as possible. I'm going to set up as best I can distancing, though I know the reality is I can't have them all at 6 feet apart. I think that we as a profession have to do the best that we can, but I think we can't go crazy in trying to be so worried that we're going to make somebody not be safe. I've put protocols in place beyond just to try and show, look, I'm not just winging it here. I'm going to go, guys, keep some distance and be smart.
Just to clarify, you are planning on having the whole band do a band camp the first week of school, which is at the end of August. Is that right?
Correct. The kids that chose the distance learning, I did give the option of, if you don't feel comfortable with being on campus, you don't have to do that, but I need you to let me know. The huge majority of the kids wanted to come back and are allowed to come back in this county to participate in the extracurricular part of our co-curricular activity.
What we've decided to do is we decided to forego our competitive show. And part of that is our district hosts the UIL region contest in our area. This becomes a liability issue with 20 to 30 bands coming into one stadium. We have 325 kids in our band program, and we've decided we're not doing any summer band at this particular point. And with the rules and regulations changing almost daily, we're just trying to wait and see how it's going to work. Our first day of school is supposed to be August the 19th. My goals for our kids are to come back in and continue our culture building of our program and to be able to focus on the fundamentals that they haven't been able to do over the past 6 months. We normally do 3 days after school. In Texas, we're limited to 8 hours outside of class time per week. And so we use about 7.5 hours of that time. At first, we're not going to do anything. And we're going to wait and start and kind of see how everything goes. And then we're going to maybe go to a once a week after school at the stadium, which is normal for us to do anyway, because our stadium is off campus. So we do that in the evening. So everybody meets there. It's a lot easier to stay open. We're still going to teach a limited, 4 or 5 minute show, very basic, very easy, but stuff where we can still teach them fundamentals. We're going to do some fun kind of 80s music, just something that's going to be crowd pleasing for the football games, if we have football games to play for. But even if there's no football games, then it's something that the kids will enjoy playing, but hopefully gives them some semblance of marching band normalcy. I was telling somebody the other day that I think my freshmen this year will probably march better than any freshman, because we're going to be able to spend more time teaching them fundamentals of marching, as opposed to, here's 2 days of marching, now go learn a spot. And then you're trying to teach those fundamentals along the way. We're going to, trying to be cautious, but, we're not going to ride a drill that's everybody's marching on dots 7.5 feet apart the whole time. I want him to ride a drill that's going to teach kids how to do it. One of the things we're going to do, we're investing in the neck scarf mask for the kids so that they can keep on all the time. So when it's like, okay, you got to have a mask on, they can just pull it up over their face. And when not, they can just pull it back down and we can still play. We have about 6 weeks of school before we start football season now. So we have some time to evaluate how things are going. And if things blow up, then we can just shut it down and be chill. If they're not, hey, we're ready to go and we can perform.
So for me, there haven't been any camps. There hasn't been anything. I would normally be doing like a jazz camp this week and like a marching music kind of thing next week. I'm actually looking forward to a whole bunch of fundamental work. We're going to be using smart music. We're going to be using Band Lab and another one called Sound Trap. My plan for the fall is to do breakout rooms and then eventually get everyone into that Band Lab situation where we can have a backing track for them to center on and play along their parts, send it to me. We're going to put it all together in like a garage band or kind of thing. Then I can put those things up on YouTube. I'm actually kind of excited and looking forward to using some of the Band Lab stuff, using those things as accountability in a much stronger way with my jazz bands and my concert bands. Anyway, that's kind of what's going on here.
I'm actually supposed to start band camp today. So at 4:30 today, I've got some kids coming. When I put in my plan, the plan was to be 7.5 feet apart. So, on and in between the yard lines, and we're only going to do music. I told my students until the schedule calms down, I don't know what that looks like. And I don't want to count on football or no football or whatever. I want to be, set to be able to be musical. The county mandate came down that kids are supposed to be 25 feet apart from each other because the Colorado governor said that performers should be 25 feet away from the audience. And therefore the county health department decided that should then extend to every performer. I sent that, up the chain in my district. And they said, if the plan is to be outside the whole time, we're actually going to increase the space farther than 7.5 feet, but I don't think it'll get quite to 25. And the district's given me the okay to to continue and move ahead with that. And then we're going to spend a lot of time to kind of helping kids socially and emotionally. And so we're going to keep everybody, apart and do a lot of just check-ins and making sure they're okay. And then putting a lot of plans in place for what happens when and if we have to do any kind of virtual learning this year. In our program, we're really trying to focus on the kids. How do we build them back up? We're trying to work with our schools within our district to at least be similar in our approach, so that we don't have any kind of blowback about, well, why don't they do it this way at one school and not the other school? I think we're pretty well set up for distance learning. If we need to, we've got Chromebooks. We're a one-to-one school. So the biggest challenge has just been to kind of communicate with kids. We still don't have our master schedule set because, like I said, it keeps changing. We went from an 8-period day. Earlier this summer, they reduced it to 4 periods, so we're doing a straight block. So now I only get to see my ensemble classes for one semester. Administration is trying to do their very best to balance that out. We talked about trying to do skinnies or after schools or whatever else. And the district said, we sympathize, but once we start opening it to skinnies, then all of a sudden you're back to an 8-period day because everybody's going to want that. I mean, the whole idea of reducing the number of classes was to reduce the amount of contact you have with kids. Our mantra in our music department has just been, we can survive anything for a year. And I'm just really blessed that, the other folks in my department, we're just looking to support each other the best way we can.
So I can't meet with the kids indoors, but I can do some rehearsals. So our July band camp was canceled. We can't have any more than 100 people at any outside gathering. So that's about half my band. So I've got a rehearsal schedule starting on the 17th where I'm bringing half of them in at a time. Very, very strict protocols. Social distancing at all times. We're going to have masks on for a lot of the time. I ordered the bell covers and the flute shields and all that. Thankfully, my district paid for all that. So we're going to see how that goes. That's scheduled to start August the 19th. But I'm ready for the other shoe to drop because the cases here are kind of ticking up still. Our curriculum has to be on Canvas. My goal is just to provide engaging material that helps their musicianship. It's certainly not going to be performance ensemble. It's not going to be band. But I think we're just going to have to be patient. This is going to have a long-term effect on all of us and on our programs. And we just have to have kind of a long-term view of getting through this.
April, I'm not sure that there's any problem this year for the rising ninth graders. I'm very much concerned about how to look in one more year. Of course, we all ran into trouble with trying to effectively communicate with those rising ninth graders. We won't see those effects for a couple of years, but I think that's really more a concern for next year.
Yeah, I agree. We were lucky. We got all of our recruiting happens actually in November and December. So my choir teacher and I came up with a plan that we are going to start a letter writing campaign with our current students to send letters out to kids that are in the feeder programs and just try and reach them on a personal level and kind of show them, that, hey, we really want you in the program here. And we know that this is tough right now, but we really want you to stick it out until you get here.
I love the letter idea.
If these YouTube concerts are of a quality that I'm happy with, which I'm sure I won't be, but we'll see what happens. I think that being able to send those concerts to Google Classrooms of elementary kids, that's one thing I'm going to do is just send that out there.
Ken, did you have something to add to that?
I started doing like a vodcast every week. The more stupid, silly things I did at the beginning of that to grab their attention, I could at least tell that there were more hits. Whatever we can do to get FaceTime with those kids, I think is good. And it's about all you can do at this point.
Today, when our kids come, my plan is to just start and just let them talk for a minute and just hear what their situation is. A lot of these kids just want to be heard. They want to be seen.
The governor's orders here allowed at the time outside groups of 10 or less. And so since my camp was canceled, I have my marching band organized by squads and I have squad leaders. And I equipped the squad leaders and charged them to meet with their squads 8 to 10 times over the summer. And that's been really successful. I've had a lot of parents thank me for doing that. I think they felt it was safe because it wasn't a large crowd, and yet the kids still felt connected to the group.
I found listening stuff was really good, and I'm planning on spending a lot of time listening and talking about music. They'd never heard Miles Davis before. Alfred Reed, who's that? So I was playing a whole bunch of different recordings and things, and I plan on doing a lot of that too and letting them talk like Pete's talking about.
We started doing our leadership stuff. We were supposed to do our leadership training in June. Then we backed it up to the middle of July in person, and then it changed to being virtual. But we fortunately, after we were done, we were able to have about 2 hours where we brought all of our leadership team, which is about 35, 40 kids, into the band hall, and we just sat and talked for about 2 hours. That had been the greatest 2 hours for about the last 6 months for me. One of the things that we talked to them about was we gave them all the contact information of all their sections, and the section leaders doing reaching out and doing Zooms. I don't think they do band. They just get together and talk. And I've been telling those guys, hey, we're not doing rehearsals, but keep reaching out to your sections, because to me, the number one thing that we do is continue the culture.
These kids today are so much more social media connected, and they do so much of their communication through the computer and through the phone anyway. The learning curve for them, I don't think, is as severe as it is for us. We know about band kids is that they're just very resilient. And while they're missing that camaraderie, they're still doing it in their own ways.
I love BandLab, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. The reason I like BandLab and my kids like it is because it has a latency compensator in it, where you hit start test and you take your microphone, hold it up to the speaker, it plays a couple of click noises, and it automatically adjusts the latency to your internet connection and your microphone. So then you're dialed in. My kids are really excited about it because they're learning how to punch and do all this stuff.
We just did a lot of asynchronous work. So I would give kids every week a music theory assignment, a listening assignment, and a playing assignment every week. And those were their 3 assignments. And then we did one synchronous call and just did check-ins. And sometimes we had kids play for the class, if they were brave and wanted to play something they were working on. And then we would just give feedback in the chat room.
The one thing that the kids got totally engaged in is selecting a marching band show. The moral of that story is the more control we can give the students in terms of choices, obviously increases their engagement.
We did that as one of our assignments too, and it was very well received. Them choosing their own marching show and being able to justify why you would pick the songs gave to the creative side of what we do in the music world. It did one where kids designed a series of songs to represent different parts of their day. And they could, they would just turn in this song. What do you feel like in the morning? What do you feel like in the best moment of the day, your worst moment of the day? A lot of kids really enjoyed it.
One of the things that we had a good time doing was we started our week with a goofy staff video every week. We made some kind of goofy video to loop them in to saying, okay, now here's your assignment for the week. But the goal was to make it fun. My principal wants us to be able to travel, not so much just because the band wants to be there, but he views it as, hey, if we're going to take the cheerleaders and we're going to take the ROTC and the drill team, the smaller groups, he goes, our band needs to be there. So we're looking at some alternative options, like A band, B band, kind of split the bands up so we can let them travel in smaller groups. The plan right now is to travel. We're going to make those decisions on a week by week basis. Our marching competitions are all done. We're not doing any of those. As far as travel goes, he told us we're going to be able to plan a trip in the spring semester, a smaller trip, staying within the state of Texas.
Yeah, with football and stuff going on, with all of our fall sports being canceled, we're probably not going to be doing anything. Our Southern California Band Association, as far as their competitive marching, has been canceled. I would like to look into doing something in the spring, but I'd have to wait and see.
Florida high school athletic folks have not made a firm decision about how football will look. They are committed to try and do it in the fall. I think they're committed to try and have a full season somehow. I don't think in all of the chaos of all that we'll travel to away games, and we usually do. We do plan to do the home games. Our district assessments for marching band have been canceled statewide, so we'll just kind of take a wait and see approach. I hope we can travel. The most valuable part about the travel is not so much the destination, it's the bonding that they get and the opportunities that they get. I hope so, and I think all of us hope so, that we can do it.
Yeah, most districts in Colorado have canceled all travel. They're saying like 1 kid per seat, every other seat on the bus with masks on. But we're looking, as soon as we feel like we can get the district to pass something, we want to be back out there and want to be taking our kids places, because we believe that there's so much inherent value in our kids being out of their community and seeing other places in the country.
The High School Athletic Association of Michigan, like Florida, they've punted, they've kicked the can down the road by delaying the beginning official start date for practice. So they're still at this point trying to salvage a football season, all the fall sports. Frankly, I don't see them happening the way most schools are starting remotely at 25% capacity here under strict protocols. I don't see how football happens here. We were supposed to go with Greenlight to Disney World last March, and then they got postponed in November. Now it's postponed again until March, and we're going to do something in March.
Thank you all so much for your time. I think, we all have the kids' best interest in mind, and I know that we're all going to persevere. And at least from my perspective, it feels better knowing that we're all in this together, and we're going to get through it the best we can. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate you.